Hi, welcome to the What If Podcast. Your host tonight is gonna be Spanker Wetman and then Ryan Crapperthap. Enjoy.
Hi, buddies.
Hey, buddy.
Buddy singular and buddies plural.
All y'all.
All aboard.
Our collective buddies.
How are you, friend?
You know what, bro? I'm pretty good.
Excellent.
How are you?
Great.
Sick. It's lit.
My day has been made. There's a new Great British Bake Off to be watched on Netflix.
Oh, buddy.
Watched episode 1 last night. They're doing it weekly, though. Which is probably like healthier for me, honestly.
For there not to be more than that?
Yeah.
Oh, you're saying if you had gotten 30 episodes dumped on you, you would have not shaved or eaten or
Correct.
gone to the bathroom.
Made this podcast or, any others for a few weeks.
Spencer just emerges on October 8th
Yeah.
in his own filth.
Yeah.
in a robe.
Just
I've been baked. I'm fully baked.
Just mumbling about marzipan.
I gotta make the crisp.
Genoese.
The whip's gonna break if I.
Just only speaking with goofy ass British slang.
Is there good British slang on there?
Oh yeah,
I'm sure there is.
Bits and bobs and
bits and bobs.
Uh-huh.
They put a lot of raisins and stuff. I feel like the
dried fruit was present in episode 1. Yeah,
that sounds like something the Brits would do.
Yep.
Is put dried fruit in their sweets.
They do some some worldly bakes too, though.
Some worldly bakes.
But they also
say more about this worldly bake concept.
They'll get crazy and make like a what's the Turkish one with the layers and the honey? Maybe it's not Turkish.
I was just gonna say baklava.
Yeah,
I think that's Greek, but
that one too.
It might be Turkish.
It's over there.
I thought it was Greek.
That
but
part of the world.
I'm not gonna assign that to anyone.
They'll do some American things and like put twice as much sugar in it.
They'll do some American things where they're like, all right, guys, we're going to puree 30 pounds of Kit Kats.
Yeah.
We're going to shove them inside of the biggest Twinkie the world's ever seen and then put it in your butt. It's the Great American Bake Off.
Do we put stuff in our butts over here?
I mean, it's just one of those like
more than other countries? I'm sure we put stuff in our butts, but like, is that known to be an American thing?
Yeah, I was just thinking of, how can you
put more stuff in your butt?
Ingest.
Ryan's usually thinking about how to put more stuff in your butt.
No, it was more like Americans. Wait, what? Oh, no.
Ryan just wants more stuff in everyone's butt.
Look, Americans use just whatever the most like vicious mechanism is.
So vicious.
It's like, oh, can we fry chicken and make it a taco shell because we're just complete and utter dickheads, So like, of course someone's going to butt chug a DQ Blizzard. Like that's for sure a thing that's going to happen in America.
Is it more effective? Maybe that's not the right word.
Yeah.
What are the advantages of butt chugging ice cream?
Well, the way I understand the concept of butt chugging as a whole, which is for the record, not something I've ever participated in.
Sure. Is that
you bypass the stomach that breaks stuff down, so you get it in your like.
No, I understand the principle. I'm wondering how that principle applies to ice cream.
Oh, because the sugar goes directly into your receiving receptors. Receptors.
If I don't,
all right, it's been a good night, everybody.
If I don't tolerate dairy well, is that a viable alternative for me?
BRB, I'm gonna go run into traffic. Yeah, maybe that's the solution to those of us with lactose issues.
Great. Anyway, hi. It's a podcast about ghosts and weird stuff.
Yeah, Dog's Ghost Blog coming at your earballs.
This week it's about The Simpsons because fuck with us, we're grown now. We do what we want.
I'm 18. I do what I want. Did I ever tell that story on the show about when I just started using that phrase to my mom?
No, but I was also wondering if I'd ever told the So Vicious story, and maybe we just need a quick story time.
Have you ever told the So Vicious story?
I'm not sure.
Do it quick. All right, story time with Spenny and Ryan.
Oh, I'm going first?
Yeah, do it.
Okay. This is a teacher, a Mr. Spencer story, if you will, from my teaching days.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, it depended on what school I was at and how old the kids were and how well they could handle hyphenated last names. We were on for a while I worked with kids with autism between the ages of 18 and 21 who are like in a transitional, you're technically done with high school, but still entitled to special education for another 3 years. So we're going to teach you life skills type of program.
Yeah.
And one day we were like volunteering with a group of the kids cleaning up some park, and it was springtime and it just rained a bunch and it was real warm out. And this park that we were at was in this little like bowl. So it was like the whole park was below street level. You had to like walk down this hill to get to it.
So
next,
it was
next
very
to a bunch of woods.
Flooded, I'm assuming?
No, it was just full of mosquitoes because it was springtime in Minnesota in a low, wet area.
Goo!
Yeah. And one of the kids was convinced that this was like reckless and extremely dangerous for us to all be hanging out around these mosquitoes. And like something horrible was going to happen if we got stung by mosquitoes.
Yep.
I don't know if he was on like a West Nile TV news kick or something, or what he had heard and where, but he was like, no, what are you guys doing? This is terrible. We shouldn't do this. Are you crazy?
Yeah. Like why would we enter ourselves into this toxic dungeon?
Yeah. And so we were trying to convince him, like, we've got some bug spray, like,
You're gonna be all right.
If we do get stung, yeah, it sucks, but like we're gonna be okay.
I like calling them mosquito stings.
Bit? What? Don't they sting people?
What don't you call them mosquito bites?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Because they don't have a stinger. They got a mouth.
But they also don't bite you. Do they? Let's not talk about science. So we convinced them, like, it's gonna be all right. It may be uncomfortable, but like we're all gonna live. And we get down there, and every time he sees a mosquito, he's like ducking and covering his head.
Just karate chopping the air.
And it became my job to be like, all right, I'm just going to deal with this one dude and like try and have him like survive this next hour or so.
Ease his afternoon a little bit.
And at one point, he had like kind of calmed down and was just standing next to me, not really doing anything or helping, but like he wasn't keeping the rest of us from doing anything at least. So I was like, all right, this is dealt with.
Yeah.
And I hear
this
him,
will suffice.
I hear him standing next to me just whispering, so vicious. Looking at the mosquitoes flying around. And whenever he would see one, he'd be like, so vicious. Just at the sight of a mosquito.
Yes, dude.
So now anytime anything is violent or vicious or aggressive or
scary, it's so vicious.
But you have to whisper it.
So vicious. So vicious.
Anyway, what's this about you telling your parents to fuck off?
Oh no, I just I don't even remember what it's from. I think it's from something, but when I turned 18, I would just relentlessly yell, "I'm 18, I do what I want." And my mom,
how did she appreciate that?
How
did she respond?
She
to
would
that?
hit me, not hit me hard, but like just arm hit me.
Beat
like,
the shit out of me. Actually,
no, just like she'd be like, "Oh, stop it!" Like hit me in the arm. It was just funny because she would be like, "Ryan, can you help me with this thing?" And I'd be like, "I'm 18, Mom. I do what I want." And I would still help her anyway.
And
but
this
it was
happening in her house.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sure that was.
It was just funny to
very
me
cute.
to yell that at my mom anytime she asked me to be helpful with something.
Shall we listen to a couple voicemails quickly?
Yeah, buddy. We've got a couple.
We do.
Let's do this thing.
Let's start with this one.
Hey guys, this is Tanya. So I'm listening to the Patreon episode, and I am just...
We ended up talking about biblical fan fiction on the last Patreon episode, just for context.
We did, yeah, we did do that.
Picking up my son, my 11-year-old, from school, and we get in the car, and the first thing we hear is, and Jesus yells, "Oh God, yes!" And Satan thrusts his arrow shape whatever into Jesus' anus. And
Okay, real quick.
Wow.
I love that she accidentally phone censored herself. I did not bleep that out. She happened to hit a button on her phone right as she was talking about Satan's dick.
Wow. You know, I'm going to be honest with you all, and we've said it multiple times before. I quite literally forget every second of the content we record the moment that we record it.
Last week was a doozy.
So sometimes when we get messages like this, I'm like, are you sure?
Don't worry, I said that one.
Okay.
That wasn't you.
Cool.
And in my defense, I was reading someone else's work. That was not of my creation.
That's true. Okay, I forgot about that.
I had to pause it because my 11-year-old is laughing hysterically. So, just wanted to say thank you for that. And he wants me to leave our number so that you can call back if you...
We're not... sorry. We're not going to call your 11-year-old.
Tanya.
We've probably done enough damage
Oh my gosh.
just by being in the general vicinity of his ears. So...
Tanya, if we called your son, it would be like, hi, we're the Uncle Sweary Boys. And we would probably just like... We would poison him further. Holy shit. Sorry about that one. And if you all want to know more about what Tanya's referring to, it's patreon.com/whatifpodcast. It's just $5 a month and there's 100 back episodes there. Plus you get a second episode of the show every single week at patreon.com/whatifpodcast.
Yeah. All right, here's another one.
Hey y'all, it's Otilia, and I absolutely adore the show. It helps work go by way faster.
Thank you.
And I just have two things to say, really. One is that I just figured out which of you is which, because based on your voices, you guys are the exact opposite of how I pictured.
Pat.
All the time.
This is Spencer.
This is Ryan.
Okay.
Like,
I'm the
I
tall one.
Spencer looking 100% how Ryan actually looks, and now it's a conscious thing that I think about when I listen, and it's weird, and I have to go against that because I know what you guys look like now. And then two,
It'll happen.
if you've never seen the show Letterkenny, you guys need to. It's on Hulu. It's Canadian, and I think you guys would love it. If you ever want to talk about how all of downtown San Antonio is haunted because of the Alamo, I'd be here thinking about it when my boyfriend said, that one hotel is haunted, and I said, isn't all of downtown haunted? You can call me back.
Okay.
That's a big statement. Was it Ophelia or Othelia?
I'm not sure, and Google butchered it, so
Okay.
hard to say.
All right, we're sorry, Othelia or Ophelia. Also,
Or Olivia
or Olivia.
Brett. Might have been Brett.
Brett would have been real bad. We're gonna have an even bigger problem if the name's Brett. Big claim that the entirety of one of the largest cities in Texas is haunted, and I'm pretty,
fuck with it, though, yeah.
pretty into it.
Speaking of haunted hotels, did I tell you I got a lead on a rooftop hang very near the Cecil Hotel
Oh geez.
on Halloween night
Oh geez.
in LA?
Oh god.
Technically, legally, you're not supposed to go in there, but you know, if we wanted to try some things out.
Try some things out.
Yeah.
Like get arrested in another state.
I was
on
thinking
Halloween.
more like getting possessed or dead.
When you say a rooftop hang, do you mean like we found a way to get illegal roof access that we alone would be doing on our own? Or is there like a below the surface party happening?
A friend who lives very near the Cecil offered to share their space.
Okay, you made it sound creepier than the first time.
Well, that was unintentional. I apologize.
Share their space? Would it?
Invited us over? Why is this so confusing?
because you're saying that this is like, you're making it sound like this is an abandoned building that no one can be inside of.
No. Turns out we know someone who lives near the Cecil. Is that better?
Oh, yes. And you're saying they offered us to come over to their place where we could see the Cecil from there.
/ maybe root around if we want to, do illegal things.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was under the impression that the space that was being shared was the rooftop of the Cecil Hotel, and I got very confused.
No. A friend of ours lives in a building with rooftop access that overlooks the Cecil.
I see. So we could rappel downward
Perhaps, yes.
onto the Cecil.
If you want to pack some ropes.
Bump, 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 bump. The Sweary Boys. Sweary Boys. Done it.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm down. Let's go to LA and get some
Get our Tom Cruise on.
Dude.
And become Scientologists.
All at once. Dude, I used to live in LA, for those of you who haven't heard me reference that before, and one time we were shooting a music video out there, which consisted of driving around in a convertible, and we had mounted multiple cameras to the convertible so that we could like drive around and play the song and rap to it, and like it would all be captured from different angles.
Damn, who came up with that treatment? That's innovative.
You mean like everybody ever? Was that the joke?
That was the joke.
Okay, cool. So we were driving around LA, and at one point we had to basically pull into there's like it's not an alley, but it's like not really a full street either, but it's behind the Church of Scientology in LA on like
Seems
the
like a
south side of it.
Bad place to hang out.
Well, and we weren't really hanging out there. We just had to pull in, stop the car, and reaffix one of the cameras that had like slightly been jostled while we were driving.
Okay.
So it was us, and then our like director and producer were in a car, and we pull off into this little area, and I swear we are in this little back area. Like we're not near an entrance. There's like a gate with a tarp on it.
Doesn't matter, bro.
We were there for, I'm not exaggerating, like 180 seconds tops. Like
It's 179 too long.
yeah, man. 2 minutes, 3 minutes. This guy in just like puffed up security guy dude is just like rolling up on us. And we're like, shit, like let's just fix this thing out here. What are you guys doing? Nothing, man. We got to fix something. Oh, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, we're just parked. Like this is private property. You need to get off it right now. Can you shut the cameras off? Like we got shut down mega fucking hard by this dude.
mean, to be fair, you probably could have seen that one coming.
I
You
mean,
roll up on the Scientology spot with cameras rolling.
I literally thought we were going to be there for less than 5 minutes, and we very much didn't look like we weren't like holding them up and like looking at stuff.
No,
We
they were just attached to your vehicle.
yeah, it was. I mean, I'm not saying it's like I can't believe that a Church of Scientology security guard rolled up on us. It was more just the speed and aggressiveness with which it happened was impressive.
Hey, man, you don't get to maintain one of the world's biggest cults by not paying attention to detail,
By not beating up people shooting music videos outside of your church.
by not constantly doing way too much. You want to talk about The Simpsons for 40 minutes or so?
Okay, I'm reloading.
Is that a yes?
Yep.
All right, tight.
Yep. It is. It was. It still is.
So I think this originally came from a listener suggestion, but The Simpsons have predicted, I guess is the right word, anticipated,
Yeah.
had their finger on the pulse of a lot of things throughout the years.
Yeah.
And I thought it'd be fun to run through some of the more intriguing or more dramatic predictions that The Simpsons has made throughout the years.
The Simpsons.
Shh.
What?
We can't do it.
I said the Cinnamon Toast Crunch is my favorite cereal.
Yeah, okay.
Remix.
So you can find a lot of lists on the internet of
10, 14, 25, 32.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of made my own list of the ones I thought were most interesting / most accurate / least likely. And the first one I came up with was the Siegfried and Roy tiger attack, which in season 5, episode 10 of The Simpsons, which aired originally in 1993. Great episode, by the way. Springfield legalizes gambling, and the whole town just goes to shit, and Marge becomes addicted to gambling and abandons their family, and the family goes to hell, and they end up hiding from the boogeyman behind the dining room table with a shotgun aimed at the front door. It's really, really a classic episode.
Fantastic. The episode is called Springfield with a $sign for an S.
Perfect.
Parentheses, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Legalized Gambling.
Great. So they opened the Mr. Burns Casino,
Of course.
for which the logo is Mr. Burns as a mermaid on a neon sign out front. And in the casino, Siegfried and Roy, but not named Siegfried and Roy, are doing a routine with their giant white tiger riding a unicycle, and the tiger jumps off the unicycle and starts mauling the two of them and like tearing their clothes apart. And biting the shit out of them. Yeah. 10 years later, during a show at the MGM in Vegas, Roy Horn was attacked by a 7-year-old white tiger during their act.
Ew.
What I learned while researching this briefly is that it was also Roy's 59th birthday. So on his birthday, he got attacked by a tiger.
Poor guy.
The tiger lunged at his neck about halfway through the show and dragged him off the stage.
Oh, dude.
During a live show that was also being filmed. If you are an especially fucked up individual, you can find video of this on the internet still.
Don't do that.
I found it accidentally and did not watch it, but I know that it does exist and is accessible still.
Ugh.
16 years later.
Gross.
Quote from an audience member, "He looked like a rag doll in his mouth," said audience member Kirk Basser of Pennsylvania.
Brutal, dude.
He survived, and
yeah, but isn't he paralyzed?
is he? I don't know.
I think he's paralyzed forever.
Dang, I was trying to make that a little bit lighter, and reality ruined that one for us.
I got sad.
But that one, like,
back to cartoons.
I think this is sort of a good introduction to this whole topic because it's pretty specific in terms of like a specific thing happening to a specific person.
Yes.
And yet, if you have a bunch of smart people in a room together, you could probably anticipate or at least like have the thought that at some point the guy doing magic tricks with a tiger would get attacked by the tiger.
Yeah. And that's what I was just, when you were like a room full of smart people, I was like, it could be a room full of real dumb people and they would all be able to be like, that might not work out so hot one day, you know,
Sure.
like, yeah.
It's just one that's like, yeah, we probably could have seen that coming, but also they fucking nailed it, and 10 years in advance of it actually happening.
For sure.
And it's a very specific thing. It's not like I don't know. It's not a general event. You know, it's like this specific thing will happen to this specific person in this way.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I think like the flip side of this coin is like animals attack their trainers and like
for sure. Yeah. It's
like
not unprecedented as a general idea
all the time.
Yeah,
Right. But also, yes, like I agree with you. It is a like it's not like they got attacked in a practice session or while changing the tigers from pen to pen or whatever. Like it happened in a very specific situation to a very specific individual or set of individuals. Yeah, it's interesting, but yeah. We'll keep going. I have thoughts.
All right. Do you have other examples you want to bring up?
Let's go through your list and see if you. Yeah.
The next one I had was. This is a much later episode of The Simpsons. This is season 21, which was 2010, episode 12, in which Homer and Marge join the U.S. Olympic curling team.
Yes.
For the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
In that episode, the climax of that episode is the U.S. curling team led by Marge and Homer in a thrilling come from behind victory defeat Sweden to win the gold medal.
Yes.
In real life, in 2018, the U.S. Olympic curling team came from behind to beat Sweden for a gold medal.
Yes.
Which was, I believe, the first time that the U.S. has won gold in curling?
Second.
Second? Okay.
Second, I think.
I'm
pretty sure it's the second.
Okay.
I could be wrong.
Again, pretty specific.
Yeah, 2 specific countries. Could have been a lot of countries in that.
One sport, 2 countries, correct victor, and correct like general type of victory.
Sure.
Which is like, obviously, if you're writing a TV show about a sport, you're probably going to make it dramatic. You're not going to center an episode around a 20-0 blowout or however curling is scored.
Yeah.
But kind of weird.
Yeah.
Even like writing an episode about curling, like I think they've only done one. It's not like you're writing a bunch of episodes that all revolve around curling and you've covered every possible outcome. You did one and you fucking nailed it. And within the next 2 Olympics.
Right. Which, like in the gold medal match, could have been a variety of people.
Yeah.
You know, it could have been a ton of different countries that were in.
Yeah, I mean, you did pick 2 countries that are generally pretty good at that sport, at least. It wasn't like, you know, you had Nigeria beating Laos or something.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
You don't seem convinced. I want to hear one that you're like excited about.
Okay.
Because I went 0 for 2 with you, apparently.
No, I think like, okay, so here's how I feel.
If you're bummed on this general idea, I'm going to be real irritated.
No, I'm not bummed on the general idea.
You convinced me to do this.
No. I'm not bummed on the general idea. Here's how I feel. I think that what has happened here slightly is it's one of the longest running shows in the history of TV.
We're on season 30 something. Yeah.
There are 662 episodes of The Simpsons.
That math works out. Yeah. Season 32 probably.
14,562 minutes of Simpsons if you calculate each episode at about 22 minutes.
Sure.
Which means there's 243 hours of Simpsons episodes, which means that you could sit down and watch a 40-hour work week's worth of Simpsons episodes for 6 consecutive weeks, and you would not repeat a single Simpsons episode.
Sounds like a challenge.
So I think when it gets real cold in January, you and I know what we're doing.
I've been going through a lot of them in the last year or so since they all became available, and I learned that they were all available.
Where are they all available?
FXX made them all available. It was probably a few years ago now. But if you have Xfinity/Comcast/ any cable provider that carries FXX, they're all available on demand.
All right.
All 600 and whatever of them.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I bet a whole bunch of people listening right now are just like, sick, I'm about to go watch a bunch of Simpsons.
Yeah, as you should.
Okay, one that I find particularly strange is in season 6, episode 19, there is an episode called Lisa's Wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa's wedding is actually responsible for a handful of things that are considered predictions in the Simpsons world.
Is this the time travel-y one?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a jump forward into the future where Lisa gets married, hence Lisa's wedding.
Yeah.
And because of the time traveling nature, I guess, there are a handful of things that happen in the hypothetical future that people have chalked up to be predictions of the show. One of them that I find actually very interesting is, and it's pretty simple, but there's a moment in London because I believe Lisa's husband is British in that episode.
I don't remember. I didn't rewatch that one, so I'd be guessing.
I actually have I didn't watch it either, but I think it might be supposed to be Hugh Grant.
Okay.
I'm not
that
entirely
seems like a
sure.
Simpsons move. You said which season was this?
Season 6, episode 19.
Okay.
There's a scene where there's like a biplane flying past London Bridge and like past Big Ben, like by the Tower Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And in the shot, there is what appears to be a building, like a sharp pointed building shooting up into the sky. And that building today is called the Shard. And if you look at pictures of London skyline, it's a thin, tall building that, you know, in this shot, it's colored like dark. You know, it looks like like grayish, but it also appears to be like a gray day in this screen as well. So
sure,
there's like a shadow-ish
it's in the background,
there.
so it might be a darker things are farther away. Atmospheric trick.
Exactly. There is a real building in London today called the Shard that is placed almost exactly in proximity to the Tower Bridge where this thing is in this shot. But construction on the Shard didn't begin until 2009, which was 14 years after this episode came out. And there was not previously any building in its place. And if you know London, in that area, there aren't skyscrapers. Like there aren't tall buildings in that area. The Tower Bridge is and was at the time one of the tallest things in the area. So it's a really small detail, but it's one of those ones where I'm like, well, what the fuck was that then? Like,
is it possible that someone who was 15 in 95 and watching The Simpsons was 29 in 2009 and designing buildings and thought it would be funny?
I mean, I will say there are some of these that people have been like, The Simpsons predicted the future, but it's like, no, they didn't predict it. They, I think, were literally like, they literally influenced the future by stuff they've done on the show because the show is so
Simpsons, especially in the 90s,
ubiquitous.
was the like height of pop culture, at least with certain age groups.
Right.
Like ours.
And I know like you're joking about like this little blip on the screen being the invention
yes
of a
and no.
15-year-old. Yeah.
Obviously, I don't think that's the likeliest explanation, but like,
Are you familiar with the well, before I break that, I just find that one interesting because there's no reason for it to be there if it's trying to be an accurate representation of London,
and it's not meaningful in any way to the episode, right? It's not part of
nope.
It's
they don't
just
reference
in
it.
Passing in
it's
the
just
background.
in passing in the background, and it looks just like the Shard building hid in the background.
To be fair, there's very little detail in that frame that you just showed me.
Sure.
It's just like sort of a rectangle that comes to a point. But
yes, that's fair. But I just mean like it looks like it in the way that there's no
it's a general placement and general shape.
Yeah, like if you look at, if you describe this to our listeners, like this thing is
Flip her around, bud.
This thing is like, I mean, it's
like it's like a very thin or very narrow pyramid. So it looks like it has a rectangular base and then comes to a point, but
right.
it's like if you squished a pyramid vertically.
Yeah.
But that, however, looks to be like made of glass or
but
some sort of lighter reflective material.
But in this, it just looks like the darker things are further in the back.
Maybe. Or it's a darker building.
For sure, maybe.
It's a still from a 90s cartoon. There's not a whole lot of detail going on in the background of the
I agree.
shot.
I guess the point I'm trying to make, though, is that, like, if they were doing an accurate representation of London skyline,
you wouldn't have put anything there.
For all intents and purposes, everything else that they did there was accurate. And you wouldn't have put anything there unless there was something there. But that was 14 years later. So what did they put there and why did they put it there? And why, to this day, is it a relatively accurate representation of the location of the building that is near the Tower Bridge in London?
Has anyone asked the architect
if they're a big Simpsons fan?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
was it an American company that built it?
And just said, LOL. LOL, we got them.
Mm-hmm. They're going to love this shit on comedy podcasts 10 years from now.
Right. The other pieces of that episode are slightly less enthralling, mostly because, like some people have said, well, in that same futuristic episode, The Simpsons forecasted smartwatches where Lisa's husband was speaking into his watch and making phone calls with it.
Some of those ones are a little silly to me because, like, that as a concept has been around long before The Simpsons.
That was on the Jetsons.
Yeah.
So was in the same episode they say, they invented FaceTime because Lisa's talking to her mom via TV. Like, that was also on the Jetsons, and that was around even before that.
That idea has been around since the 50s. As soon as we had phones and television, somebody's like, we should put them together.
Right, exactly.
Like, that's not a new concept. I'm sure there are many other films and TV shows and books and stuff that have anticipated us having video calling at some point. Like,
absolutely.
It wasn't like Apple blew our minds with that concept. They were just the first ones to execute it well and on the large scale.
Right. Now, the flip side of that coin is there is an episode on season 6 as well from episode 8 where there's a Palm Pilot being used, a PDA being used. Did you see this one come up? It is, hang on, let me pull it up really quick. The episode is called Lisa on Ice. And the episode info says, after the Springfield schools instituted a new academic alert policy informing parents if their grades are failing, Lisa is the last student anyone would expect to merit a warning letter, but Homer and Marge are startled to learn Lisa may flunk out of one of her classes. To make up for her PE classwork, Lisa is told she can join any athletic team, but she doesn't seem well suited for any school sports to make the cut. In this episode,
a volleyball hits her on the head and deflates, which is a great bit because she's got spiky hair.
Preach.
She gets kicked off the volleyball team because she pops the volleyball with her hair.
I mean,
perfect.
You get it.
Great bit.
It'll happen when you got spiky orange hair. The bullies in their school, Kearney and Dolph, are holding I can't remember what they called it.
Really, those guys' names?
Yeah, Kearney and Dolph. The Newton, was that what it was? Yeah. The Newton was the old Apple like PDA system. And Kearney says to Dolph, "Hey, take down a note to beat up Martin," because Martin, they were in like a school assembly and Martin says something. I can't remember all the details of the scene. I watched it on YouTube. Martin says something in class or in this school assembly and they get pissed off and he's like, take down a note in your Newton to beat up Martin. And he writes beat up Martin on his PDA and it changes to eat up Martha.
Yeah.
On the screen, and then Kearney gets pissed, so he takes the PDA and just throws it at Martin instead. So like, okay, yes, like PDAs were a thing, but like autocorrect was not really a universal concept at the point.
So this one shows up on all those lists, and it's like the most explainable one to me of all of them.
Tell me.
So the Apple Newton was
Yes.
Apple's first attempt at a tablet.
Yes.
And it was released in, they started working on 87, shipped the first devices in 93, and it was dead by 98. So this episode came out when?
Hang on.
Like 90.
94.
Okay. So they were referencing an actual product, the Apple Newton,
Yes.
that had been in the market for a year or so.
Yes.
And
was failing, right?
It didn't do very well. No, it was Apple's like first attempt also at portable computers. So part of the appeal of it was that like it was the first roughly pocket-sized computer in the market.
Sure.
It was a tablet and it had a stylus with it, and you could write onto the screen of the tablet and it would record what you had written as a text file. So it would translate your handwriting to a text file. Part of the reason it failed is because it was notoriously bad at transcribing people's handwriting into text.
Oh, so this is like a real feature functionality.
They were roasting a real issue with a real product that was in the market at that time.
See, I understood this to be that the Newton was a thing, but it was just like not complex at all, and they were like making fun of Apple's future thinking bullshit.
This was a
bullshit,
specific issue with that specific device.
All right, well that makes way more sense.
Yeah.
Like way more sense.
But the fucking BuzzFeed article says that they predicted autocorrect.
I mean,
which is just like not at all what was happening.
No,
there.
totally. But if you don't know that, which I didn't know that, then it makes it look like they're like, oh, like, because it's such a ubiquitous thing at this point that your phone fucks up the things you're trying to say to people, and you're like, you're trying to say something to your mom and you end up texting her dirty words accidentally because your phone autocorrects it for you or whatever it is.
Sure.
But like that's a really ubiquitous thing at this point. So it's funny too how I think some of these are, and that's why I think this whole thing is interesting. That's
not the Simpsons doing anything, right? That's our culture, and that's literally the same company, just 20 years later.
No, absolutely, and that's
18 years later.
That's what I mean. Is that's
math
why
is still bad. Jesus Christ, that guy went from bad to worse.
Bad to worse. Just we got to stop trying with it. That's what we got to do.
Several years later,
a
number.
Several years later, a number. Breadth and fuckery, gang. Breadth and fuckery.
But that's like, Apple was fucking that up then, and they're fucking it up now. Or, well, they're pushing the boundaries of what computing can do.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't go as planned.
And that's what I was trying to say is I think that's what I find interesting about this topic or this phenomenon is it's this really weird mixture of, there are some for sure oddities, like some like, okay, how did that happen? That's pretty weird. There are some that are just like the generic ones, like the smartwatch concept, which is again like something that's been around for a long time. And then there are things like this one where with our contemporary technology lens, we look backwards on it and we don't realize that something was the way it was. So we think the joke is about something different than it's about.
I think we have a tendency now to, backing up a step, how we always talk about how aliens get credit for anything that primitive, or like not even primitive, but just like earlier humans made.
Yes.
I think we're on a micro scale experiencing the same thing now, where we forget that there were computers in the 90s.
Sure.
And that like Apple existed in the 80s and 90s and they were doing things, and like that's not that long ago, and we weren't that different as human beings.
Right,
and
right.
As much as technology has changed in the last 20 or so years, in some ways it hasn't also.
Right.
And we're like, oh man, we didn't have personal computers in 93. It's like, yeah, we did.
Yeah. They're making Palm Pilot jokes in 1994.
Yeah, we still had the same issues with them then that we do now.
Right.
And when you get a bunch of smart people together working on jokes all day long, who are probably also up on like technology and current events and pop culture and shit, like that got recorded in that way.
Right.
They were frustrated with the fucking Apple Palm Pilot that they spent $800 on.
Right.
In the same way that we're frustrated with our iPhones now in 2019, but that doesn't mean that it was predictive of that.
Right.
It's just like we're still on that same path in a lot of ways. Like The Simpsons is still a fucking TV show that's on Sundays.
Right.
Like not that much has changed in 20 years.
Yeah, no, I think that's totally valid. And it's like, I mean, like obviously yes and no is the answer to that. Like some stuff has changed drastically, or like what you can do with it. But like your point is well taken that they're processing the same concepts just at like different scales.
Yeah.
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 Totally.
Can we get to one very specific one that I find more interesting than most of these?
Yes.
So in an episode called Bart To The Future, there were a few of these Lisa and Bart have visions of the future episodes throughout the years.
Yeah.
This was, I think it originally aired in 2000. Yeah, 2000. They predicted a Donald Trump presidency.
Yes.
Which, it was sort of in passing. I think we can probably get away with playing a little bit of audio. Let's see.
Don't snitch, guys.
Sweet. Excellent.
In this episode, Lisa is president and Bart is a like stoner bum slob and visiting his sister at the White House.
I like that, like all the parents who are like, don't watch The Simpsons because if they watch Bart Simpson as a role model, they're going to turn out to be shitty stoners. And they just owned their own shit. And they were like, yeah, Bart's turned out to be like a shitty old stoner.
Also, thanks parents for just ignoring all the parts where like, one of those kids goes on to be president.
Yeah. Totally.
As you know, we've inherited quite a budget crunch from President Trump. How bad is it, Secretary Van Houten?
We're broke.
The country is broke? How can can that be?
Well, remember when the last administration decided to invest in our nation's children? Big mistake.
The balance.
Shots fired.
So not only did they nail like President Trump, but also President Trump making bad decisions that bankrupt us,
Teo.
both literally and metaphorically.
Accurate. Mm-hmm. Accurate. So I also find that one super specific and strange.
Do we know the first year that he publicly, or not publicly, just that he ran for president?
That was the first thing I looked up, because when I first saw that clip, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was like, oh, fuck. Matt Groening is for sure a time traveler. Matt is a time traveler, and he's a dick about it, and he's doing this. Like, Matt Groening just for sure knew how to get to the future.
Yeah. It's in the episode about time travel also, which... spooky.
Dude, I just got a 500 error on Google. That's like the first time it's ever happened.
Oh, shit.
I searched for Matt Groening and it said, server error, we're sorry, but
he doesn't exist in this timeline.
Oh, Matt, he ruined it.
How much chocolate milk have you had today? Did you jump timelines?
We're onto him. Oh, my God. Apparently too much. He knows we're onto him. Oh, God. What happens if I refresh? Oh, God, it worked. Oh, I got really scared, you guys. So Trump ran for president in 2000.
God damn!
And,
well, that's less fun.
And his announcement saying that he was going to explore or create an exploratory committee to see if he could get elected under the Reform Party happened on October 7th of 1999.
Dad, blame it, boys.
So that episode came out in March of 2000.
6 months later, 5 months later.
6-ish months later. So
it was probably in the news at the time or close to the time
when they were writing and recording that episode. And like, it's a ridiculous concept for sure. And it's one that's so far out that it's like, how would they have nailed that? But it's also a very Simpsons thing to do, to take it and be like, oh, that's a funny joke that he's running for president now. Let's just like, LOL, he became president in this future episode we're going to do with Bart.
Can I read you a quote from one of the writers of that episode, Dan Greeny?
I'd love it if you did.
That just seemed like the logical last stop before hitting rock bottom, he said. It was pitched because it was consistent with a vision of America going insane.
Wow.
And now, here we are.
I'm tired. I'm tired.
But again, I think it comes back to like, that writing room nailed that take still.
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't know that it was going to become reality.
Right.
But they were like on top of things enough to at least like see that one potential version of things.
Yep.
Thinking it was like out there enough to just be funny.
Right.
Not anticipating that was going to be all of our shitty realities 16 years later.
Right.
But still, just to like have that awareness and then to be able to make like some pretty on the nose jokes about it too.
Totally. I think another great example of what you're talking about is season 20, episode 4, where they address the U.S. general election, and Homer.
Is that the one where it switches his vote to from Obama to
John McCain?
McCain, okay.
They thought, yeah, I mean, they projected that McCain was going to be the candidate, and then Homer goes in to vote for Barack Obama, and every time he hits the button.
Wait, who was it actually that year? Was
Mitt
it Romney?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he hits the button for Obama, and it says, "Thank you, 1 vote for John McCain." And he's like, "No, I wanted to vote for Obama." And he hits the button again, and he goes, 2 votes for John McCain. Thank you. It's so he
God
keeps.
Damn it! Like it's funny, but also like, well, now here we are.
And also,
here we are with our rigged elections, and
also there's video of a polling machine in Pennsylvania in 2008 that was improperly calibrated, and if you pressed your finger against the Barack Obama spot, it highlighted Mitt Romney. And there's a cell phone video of a person in a voting booth being like, look, I keep hitting the Barack Obama button.
Was it actually racking up multiple votes, though?
No, it wasn't.
That's an extra funny bit.
No.
Okay.
No, that is for sure an extra funny bit.
I've only ever voted in Minnesota where we just have paper.
It's part of election laws in individual states.
Yeah, no, I know. I just forget about it because
people are using
I've never
machines?
experienced anything else. Yeah.
Oh, man. I feel
just
like
fill in the little Scantron bubble every year.
Right. And they do that so that you can go back through and count the paper with human eyes and hands if you need to.
Seems reasonable.
Not just be like, there's bits and bytes in there. We'll just sort them all out and everything's going to be fine.
Odds and sods.
Odds and sods and bits and bytes. But that's another one where it's like, did they know there was going to be faulty voting machines in 2008? No. It's a treehouse.
Could you predict that the Republicans would maybe try and rig some elections? Yeah, probably.
It's one of those, like, they nailed the specificity of it, even though it's not necessarily a prediction per se. I mean, for what it's worth, it is a Treehouse of Horror episode, so it's like meant to be a dystopian, fucked up world.
None of these things were meant as predictions. That's the other side of all of this. Is like we're looking at them with hindsight and calling them predictions, but all of them were just, they're 10,000 jokes for every one of these that didn't turn out to be anything real.
Totally.
One that was actually meant as a prediction was the Super Bowl in 1992 in an episode about sports betting.
Sick.
Homer finds out, he starts watching football games with Lisa as like an excuse to pretend like he's spending time with his daughter, but he's just sitting silently next to her on the couch.
Of course.
And before the games, he calls in bets to Mo, who is also his bookie.
Phenomenal.
And he finds out throughout the course of the season that Lisa is like a sports betting savant. And she nails every football game all year long. And Lisa finds out throughout the course of the episode that Homer is not actually trying to spend time with her. He's just trying to make money off of her. And
of course
gets sad and hates Homer.
Of course.
It's one of those episodes. And the episode ends with Homer asking Lisa who's going to win the Super Bowl. And she says, well, I think it's going to be, it was Super Bowl, 26 in 1992. I think it was Washington and New York Giants.
I don't know.
I think that's right.
I don't know.
And she goes, well, I would bet everything on Washington. But that might be my heart being so mad at you that I want you to lose all your money and telling you the wrong thing. So if you think I still love you, you should bet on Washington. But if you don't, you should bet on New York.
Damn. So vicious.
And it turns out that Washington won the Super Bowl in 1992.
Yeah.
Right? Sounds crazy. Headline, Simpsons predicted Super Bowl winner.
Right.
That episode aired the week between the Super Bowl and the last week of the playoffs. So it was already down to those two teams.
So it was a coin flip.
And she kind of said both.
Oh, right. Because it's like she doesn't love him or she does love him. And yeah.
The outcome in the episode is that Washington wins and that she still loves him. And then Washington won a week later. But you had a 50-50 shot.
Right.
Like, also, I rewatched that episode just to see if there were any other weird little angles to it.
Yeah.
Super Bowl 26 takes place in the Metrodome in Minneapolis. And the halftime show is a UFO landing at the 50-yard line and a bunch of little aliens coming out and doing a song and dance number.
Oh, sick.
Right? Has nothing to do with anything else.
It's just a thing.
Yep. Aliens landing in the Metrodome.
I was hoping you were going to say, and Prince got out of the UFO and sang a song.
That would have been a good bit, but it was just aliens.
Damn it.
I think that was because wasn't the Metrodome Super Bowl the last one before they started going to like having big time acts play halftime? Wasn't that the one where they had like a kids marching band and it was a disaster, and then the next year they booked Michael Jackson or something?
I thought
I thought we got the last like old school halftime show.
I thought
It wasn't 92 though. It was actually here in like 89 or something.
I thought there wasn't it like Gloria Estefan or something like that?
When it was in Minneapolis? Or you're saying the first like big act to play the halftime show?
I thought it was in Minneapolis.
While you're looking that up, slightly more interesting.
Yes.
They did versions of this the next 2 years in 93 and 94. And both times also predicted the correct Super Bowl winner.
Okay, so that one is the one, because I heard this, that what they did was they did everything about the episode, and then once the playoffs were finished, they dubbed in the names of the two teams.
Yeah. But I think they still got the winner correct. Again,
No,
it was only a
know.
50-50 shot.
I know, but I'm just saying 3 years in a row, it got down to two. They dubbed in the two teams and they got it right 3 years in a row.
Yeah. So at least now we're down to like a 12% chance instead of a 50, but that's still 1 out of every 10 times.
It's still impressive in its own right.
Sort of. Or it's just, probability when you do 30 some seasons of a show.
What do you mean?
I mean, a 1 in 10 chance happens all the time.
Sure.
It's not,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
101 in 10 chances have happened to you already today.
Right.
We live in a large, possibly infinite universe. Things with small probabilities happen constantly.
That's true. That is true. And that is, I think, a big part of this whole thing is there is a lot of just coincidence to it that feels with the volume of episodes. Like there are these very clear and hard patterns. But I feel like it nets out to being a lot more just like we project these lenses onto it because of the volume of cultural references. And to your point, how many jokes and references and things are made in The Simpsons that never turn out to be real.
The other 99%.
Yeah. Exactly. There is one that I find interesting, and I think this might be a good one to close on unless you have any other ones you want to talk about.
Go ahead. I have one more like general point about all of this I want to make.
Okay, tight. I just meant like instance to close on. So in season 8, it's episode 1 of season 8. It came out in 1998, and the episode is called "The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace."
Wait, sorry. What season and episode?
Season 8, episode 1.
Got it.
And 1998.
Yep. So the show started in 89. Is that right? Like fall of 89?
I think that's right. Because it was before 90, wasn't it?
Well, if season 8 was 98, it probably started fall of 89. Is all I'm saying.
Oh, you're
because they were actually doing
math.
one a year back then, and it ran in the fall. Whatever. It doesn't. That's.
I do want to check really quick
relevant.
though, because
So that would put us on season 31.
The very first episode came out on December 17th of 1989. So one episode came out. The season premiere came out in 89. And then everything else.
On season 31? 30?
I thought it was 33.
They do 2 seasons
32?
in a year a couple times?
Maybe?
Whatever.
I don't know. But in this episode, in 1998, Homer becomes an inventor. And in the course of him being an inventor, he is shown in front of a blackboard doing blackboard calculations.
I remember this episode.
And according to Simon Singh, who received his PhD in particle physics from the University of Cambridge.
Seems pretty legit.
Dr. Singh says that the equation on the blackboard predicts the mass of the Higgs boson particle. It was first predicted in 1964 by Professor Peter Higgs and 5 other physicists, but it wasn't until 2013 that scientists discovered proof of the Higgs boson in their $13 billion experiment, which we know as the loop-de-loop.
That just seems like a smart math joke to me, though.
So Simon Singh wrote a book about this and many other concepts, which is called The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets. And I want to read you the description of the book really quick.
Okay.
It says, you may have watched hundreds of episodes of The Simpsons and its sister show Futurama without ever realizing that cleverly embedded in many plots are subtle references to mathematics.
Hell yeah.
Ranging from well-known equations to cutting-edge theorems and conjectures. That they exist, Simon Singh reveals, underscores the brilliance of the show's writers, many of whom have advanced degrees in mathematics in addition to their unparalleled sense of humor.
They have had over the years like many Harvard and other Ivy League educated folks writing on that show.
Totally. While recounting memorable episodes such as Bart the Genius and Homer Homer 3, Singh weaves in mathematical stories that explore everything from P to Mersenne primes, Euler's equation to the unsolved riddle of P v NP, from perfect numbers to narcissistic numbers, infinity to even bigger infinities, and much more. Along the way, Singh meets members of The Simpsons' brilliant writing team, among them David X. Cohen, Al Jean, Jeff Westbrook, and Mike Rice, whose love of arcane mathematics becomes clear as they reveal the stories behind the episodes. With wit and clarity displaying a true fan zeal and replete with images from the show, photographs of the writers, and diagrams and proofs, The Simpsons and Their Mathematical Secrets offers an entirely new insight into the most successful show in television history.
I think this is such a dang neat show.
Now,
you could just put that on the back, right?
What?
I think this is such a dang neat show.
Accurate description. Now, first of all, I didn't know that there was that smart of people and people who had mathematical.
They got that smart people on that show.
Y'all got that smart people? That's cool. Can I borrow a smart people?
Yeah, we could use a couple of those.
Jesus Christ. So I didn't know that was who was making the show.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense with, like, there's another one that I'm not going to get into, but there's an episode where they, on a betting sheet for Lisa and her friends had a pool for who was going to win the Nobel Prize in economics. And they circled one person on the sheet, but the next year, the guy who got it was in the box to the right of who was circled on the sheet on the show. As in,
it was like 5 or 6 years later, wasn't it?
Or yes, yeah. in the near future, I guess. Just point being, like,
they're aware of who's doing work in a lot of different parts of
who's worthy
academia.
of winning Nobel Prizes in economics, like,
within the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah,
right. It's a world of intelligence that I do think leads other people to believe the possibility of prediction.
I think it's more along the lines of if you get a bunch of really smart people together who also have varied backgrounds. They're not all smart in the same way.
Yes.
Some of them are smart in a math and science and social sciences way.
Right.
Some of them are smart in an academic way. Some of them are, well, all of them are smart in a comedy and writing way.
Right.
There's so much pop culture in that show. Like,
right.
When you get all of those people together, all focusing on one thing, I think some of this stuff just comes out in a way that no individual person would probably come up with. So when you're looking at it from the perspective of, well, I couldn't come up with that, or I didn't come up with that. No one person did individually either. It's a group of very intelligent people working together over a long period of time in a way that, like, a writer's room is also a very unique setting, just in terms of the type of thinking that comes out of it.
Right.
That's not a position that we put ourselves in day-to-day life.
No, yeah, absolutely not.
It's a weird, it's sort of a unique situation of, like, you have a bunch of very smart people working on one thing.
Right.
But in a way, they're also, like, I don't want to say no stakes, but the stakes are very different than any other situation where you'd have that type, like that caliber of thought happening in a group setting.
I think totally. I think what you mean
like
by
what's at stake is making a funny script.
Totally. I think what you mean by there are no stakes is, like, there's no right answer. The only right answer is that it's funny.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch of smart people who are really used to, like, creative problem solving and like logic and reason and structure and all that stuff.
But also free to think completely creatively and like put any idea out there.
Exactly. And there's no box.
No one's going to die, or no one's funding is going to go away, or no one, like, especially on a show like The Simpsons.
Right.
People's jobs aren't even really at stake in the same way that they would be on other TV shows.
Right. Because
if you're writing on season 12 of The Simpsons, is there better job security in television?
Right. And even if you get kicked off that show, you have an offer for probably 14 shows to write on after that.
So I'm just thinking about like the way that people's brains would get to work and work collaboratively in that setting is probably pretty unique.
Absolutely.
Even within TV, but just like in the world in general too.
Absolutely.
And the type of people that they've historically had working on that show too, not knowing too much about TV and TV writing seems sort of unique too.
Totally. 100%.
I don't know. I think you could probably find some like pretty big accurate societal trends just by getting all those people in a room talking to each other 10 hours a day for years at a time.
And I think that to me is the more interesting outcome.
Yeah.
It's not that Matt Groening
something paranormal or magical about it.
Yeah, Matt Groening
is still fascinating.
It's absolutely fascinating, and that's why I really wanted to talk about it, is because I feel like the culmination of this like legend is the genius of the show. It's that the show is in fact genius because it is literally made by many geniuses, by doctors and mathematicians and comedians and economists and sports writers and people from all these different backgrounds. And you're right, when you put that many smart people in a room together and have them do things like, well, we've got to predict who's going to win the Super Bowl. Like, those guys aren't just being like, let's pick a random team. Like, they're probably going into Vegas and they're looking at like all kinds of things or studying conditions. Like, they're doing that type of thing to make these stories more interesting and more funny, because that's the entire point of the whole exercise.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a far more interesting outcome, that it is the creativity and the intelligence of the group that tricked the universe into thinking that they could predict the future.
Can't close on one thing that might be slightly outside the realm of normal.
Let's do it.
Okay. There are many articles and listicles about this, but there's a pretty thorough New York Times article about this whole topic. And
what's it called? Shout them out. Talk to the people. It's all right.
I don't know. You can Google it while I read this quote.
Simpsons future. It'll come up.
They talked to Dr. Bernard Beltman, who wrote a book called Connecting with Confidence. And he puts forward the idea of what he calls the psychosphere.
Heyo.
Or our like collective group mind. And the quote from him in the article is, "Under the right conditions, we can know things that we don't know we know, and we can sometimes predict events or attract what we are thinking."
Whoa. That's
coming from chairman of the psychiatry department at the University of Missouri. So a guy who knows some things about how our brains work.
Who knows some things about some things.
I just love that idea of like, you get enough smart people together who are tuned into what's going on in the world, and they can not only like maybe quote unquote predict some things or come into some knowledge that they didn't know that they had individually,
but maybe like even potentially make some of those things into a reality,
which I think makes even more sense when you put it in the context of one of the most successful TV shows, maybe the most successful TV show of all time. It's like, not only are they getting together and having these thoughts and writing them down, but millions of people are then exposed to it every week.
Right. So they're putting that idea out at a scale that is
greater than
maybe literally anything else.
Yeah.
It's the biggest megaphone in the world by purveying these ideas.
Right.
Read the first quote one more time.
Even just mentioning something like, I know it was already in the news at the time, but mentioning like, haha, Trump president. Now that's a thing that however many millions of people have heard.
And have thought and have...
It is just in the universe in whatever way now.
Right.
And it's impossible to track the effect of something like that.
Right.
Maybe that does make it 0.5% more palatable the next time when he actually does run because we've just heard it before. Right?
It's like that one Simpson episode where he ran. Well, maybe it's a sign you should vote.
I'm not even saying on a conscious level like that, but maybe it's just like 1% less shocking the next time you hear it. Right? And then 16 years later, that little ripple effect is enough to sway an election that was incredibly close / he lost.
True. Or how could it potentially have an impact on an individual?
Yeah, exactly. And there's no way we don't have a way to measure any of that.
How did it hit him? As somebody who we know is like vindictive in a variety of ways.
Right.
Did the concept hit him and they said he made America poor and in his mind he's set to like, no, you know what? Simpsons made fun of me. Fuck that. One of these days I'm going to fucking do it.
Right. Tell my haters.
The
quote was, under the right conditions, we can know things that we don't know we know, and we can sometimes predict events or attract what we are thinking. So I think the second half of that is...
I want to read that book. I don't know what book that is.
The book is called Connecting with Coincidence by Bernard, Beitman, Beitman.
Beitman?
Eat pant.
It's
my favorite. I don't know if it's even a meme, but it's my favorite image on the entire internet. Do you know what I'm referencing with that?
I feel like I'm familiar with it, but I don't know if I've seen it.
It's like a bootleg store, like grocery store brand birthday cake, and it's got just this horribly drawn Bart Simpson on it, and it says "Eat pant" instead of "Eat my shorts."
Oh man, I got another server error from Google, dude.
What the hell?
We're going down, man.
Is my internet goofing?
No, because the weird part is Google is still showing up, but oh yeah, eat pant.
Do we know who owns that image? Can I just put that image, like cake and all, on a shirt and put it in our store?
It appears someone already has, so I think you're probably within your rights.
Fan-fucking-tastic. Speaking of, we just put a new hat in the store. If you want a sweet new dad hat with the What If logo on it, go to whatifpodcast.com and cop yourself one.
Guys, I'm wearing it right now.
Ryan is wearing one right now.
It's so vicious.
It's very
so vicious.
Very vicious. If you also want to get tickets to our show in Los Angeles on October 30th, you can go to whatifpodcast.com/LA and get yourself one of those.
Do it. Come see us. We want to see your pretty faces.
We have a very special episode for you next week.
Oh, Jesus.
We're going to be playing the Tingleverse, the official Chuck Tingle role-playing game.
You guys, I'm going to be a bad boy unicorn. It's going to be so sick.
We might have a guest or two with us. I'm designing a sick adventure for us through the Billings, Montana Tingleverse.
Oh, my God.
It's going to be a good time.
It's going to get so real. And then I'm going to get married, and then I'll see you guys after that.
Sick. Yeah, we may have a few guests here and on the Patreon for the next couple weeks because Ryan's got some business to handle.
Got some life shit to take care of. Hey, thank y'all for supporting the show. Thank you for listening to the show. We love y'all so much. Go hit us up on socials. It's at What If Pod. Thank you all for the nice iTunes reviews you've been leaving.
I like what you got.
We love what you got. Go ahead and leave us those if you feel like it. Shit, what else?
I think that's it.
I don't know anything else.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye.